probably going to end in disaster, but today's tutorial is not actually a tutorial. I'm gonna call it a sew along because I have never made this project before in my entire life. We are going to be making the Mondo bag from Quilt Smart. If you have been to any sewing conference, convention, class, guild ever in your life, somebody probably, I'm not even going to say probably, somebody had the Mondo bag there. This is one of the most popular bags to make, and let me tell you why. It's super beginner friendly, and they include everything you need right down to instructions on the interfacing that you need for this project. So you can't fail on this Mondo bag. And by the way, this bag's enormous. That's why it's called the Mondo bag. First things first, you're gonna need to gather your materials. Now today, I'm gonna be sewing using the Sewing Parts Online Ambassador box from Jenna, which is actually for the Mondo bag. So in this box, you're going to get the pattern along with the interfacing that you need that has all of the instructions written right on it. Look at that. You're also going to get the fabric. So you'll get 1 1/4 yards of lining fabric. You'll get 5 1/4 yard cuts of different colors of fabric. So this is what's in the box right now, these beautiful blues and florals and pinks and oranges. But this will change over time. So check the website to see what's available right now. You'll also get 1 1/4 yards of the Shape Flex SF 101, which is the interfacing that you'll need for the lining of the bag. And we always like to throw in some things that you can continue to use even after you make the project. So first things first is an entire pack of universal needles, an enormous spool of thread. This will last you well beyond this Mondo bag project. And they're also including a tube turning set with 2 different sizes, which you'll need for the handles. This is a fabulous box if you are a little overwhelmed with trying to put together all the things you need for a project. Just head over to Sewing Parts Online and get the Mondo bag box. You'll be so glad you did. So that's what I'm going to be working with today. Let's get started. This may be a complete disaster, but here's my thinking on this, okay? You can find perfectly polished tutorials of the Mondo bag all over YouTube. What I thought might be interesting is for you to see somebody doing it for the first time. I will make mistakes. I am going to run into confusion. I want you to be able to see that because those are the things we experience all the time in our sewing room and we have no idea what to do. So let's go through this together. We'll see how it goes. And then we'll go from there. I'm gonna go ahead and speak into existence that by the end of today's sew along tutorial, potential disaster, we will have a gorgeous Mondo bag. And honestly, I think that's just part of getting more comfortable with sewing and life in general. We just lean into the things that are fun and make us feel expressive and happy, which actually brings me to today's sponsor. Thank you so much to Pear Eyewear for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so if you haven't seen Pear Eyewear before, it's 100% genius what they've got going on. First, you're gonna pick a base frame. So cute. This is the Harper frame and I love it. And this can be with your actual prescription, but if you don't have corrective vision needs, but you still want some fancy fun glasses, you can just have them with a plain clear lens. And let me show you why you're gonna want these, regardless of your eye care needs. Once you get your base frames, you can then buy toppers to just throw on there to match whatever mood or whatever outfit you're feeling that day. I love that. You guys know I love options. Like, I deeply love options. So when I ordered mine, I used their virtual try-on feature online because I'm wildly indecisive and needed to see approximately every option on my face before committing. Does this sound familiar to anyone? And honestly, the process was so easy. It made ordering glasses online so much less intimidating than I expected. I'd never done that before, but they all worked out great. Look how cute these turned out. I kept the base frame neutral for just like everyday wear, but then like when I'm feeling sassy, I can throw these other ones on and be super, super sassy to match my cute outfits. And of course they're sparkly, but you don't have to get sparkly ones. There's a million different options on the website. I'm not kidding, like so many options. Also, they have sunglass lens covers. Look at this. So I don't have to put my sunglasses over my regular glasses when I'm driving. Like, how cute are these? I love this tortoise shell look. Oh, it's so cute. I love that Pear makes everything so easy and so versatile. The sunglass toppers, total game changer because they're going to read right through your prescription. And so you don't have to suffer when you're driving. But then also when you arrive at your destination and you're like, well, I would like to be purple and sparkly today, you can do that as well. They also offer free US shipping and free returns. So you can try them risk-free, which I absolutely love. Another thing I love about Pears is the A Pair for a Pair initiative, which helps provide glasses to children in need. So if you want to check them out, you can either click the link in my description or this QR code and use code SheSewsGift15 to get a free gift with your purchase. Hooray! Thank you again to Pear Eyewear for sponsoring today's video. Okay, it's time to get back to our Mondo giant bag. Let's get to cutting. The first thing we need to do is a little cutting. So as you can see, this interfacing is super helpful. They have included all of the instructions, all of the cutting lines, and you are going to find this very helpful, or at least I think we will in this project. So the first thing we're going to do is take our rotary cutter or your scissors, whatever you've got, and we're going to cut along the dotted lines. So I'm just going to trim this down. You can use your acrylic ruler if you want to, but this is kind of just, I mean, it's interfacing. It's not that serious. So you've got two panel pieces on here. And what's awesome about this interfacing is it's gridded. So when that comes into play, you will have perfectly straight squares that are matched up basically perfectly from the get-go. I love gridded interfacing. If you decide that you are going to make any sort of project using 2.5-inch squares, or I think it comes in other sizes too, you should absolutely invest in some gridded interfacing. They have it on Sewing Parts Online's website. And if you decide to make this Mondo bag over and over again, I would say eventually you'll probably be able to do it without this guided interfacing with all the instructions on it, but you can always buy more of these panels just while you're getting used to what you're doing. So the first thing I'm cutting here is going to be our handle piece. And you'll need a total of 4 of these, and you can cut them out of whatever you want. If you want to make them a different fabric from the other fabrics you're using in your bag, or if you want to use samples of each fabric, whatever works for you. Because the Sewing Parts Online box comes with 5 different colors, what I decided to do was cut down 2 handles from one panel that I really liked, which I chose the pink, and I think this will be my lining for my handles. And then I cut down 2.5-inch strips of this floral because I think that'll be really pretty for the outside. So I set those aside and we've got our handle piece now. The handle is going to be 26 inches long. And this is important to know because when you use those 5 1/4 yard cuts that are included in the box, you need to get 192 squares out of it. But once you cut your 2 handles, you'll find that you actually don't have enough fabric to get the 192 squares as is. However, you actually do. If you go over to your handle pieces, they are going to be way longer. If you cut them by the width of the fabric, they'll be way longer than 26 inches. So you can get the rest of your squares out of the remainder of those handle pieces. I learned that yesterday when I was pre-cutting some of this for the project. Ooh, I've got my window open, so if you hear the birds, they're just part of my creative team, and just get used to it because I can't live without my window open at this time of year. It's my favorite time of year. Now, you are going to need to cut, like I said, those 192, I think, 2.5-inch squares. So however that works for you, if that is using an acrylic ruler and your rotary cutter, if you want to make a template out of a cardboard box or something else, like an old piece of mail that's kind of sturdy, in a 2.5-inch square, whatever. Cut down your fabric to have 192 squares. Now I'm going to show you one panel that I've already created for this, because if I do this in real time, we will be here until, I don't know, Christmas. So here is what we're shooting for, okay, is to have a panel that has all of these blocks, and you'll see that as you iron them on, they stick to the interfacing in this perfect grid pattern, which we will soon sew up. So I'm going to take you over to the ironing board. I'm going to assume you already cut your 2.5-inch squares. We're not going to waste all day trying to cut those on camera. I've got mine over at the ironing board, and I'm going to show you how I like to attach mine to the interfacing. Let's go. Now you may notice that my ironing board looks a little different. I made a new cover for my big board yesterday, and I'm absolutely thrilled with how this turned out. I found this fabric at Hobby Lobby, and it reminded me of Liberty of London. It's just so dainty, and I thought it would really add a fun, pretty color to my sewing room. So I created a little cover for it. I'm very pleased. Now, we're gonna lay out our first piece of interfacing. I've got the bumpy side facing up, and I've got all my squares over here hanging out, all these lovely 2.5-inch squares. And we're gonna just start. Now notice on this interfacing, you've got a part that says top point, and that is important to note. So this is gonna be the top, this is gonna end up at the top of your bag. This part down here will end up at the bottom. If you're gonna do any sort of like ombre, kind of like darks to lights or lights to darks, that's something to note because all of this part will end up at the bottom of your bag. And I'm just going to start laying out my squares. Because we have 5, it works out pretty great. You're just gonna skip one color in each row, and that'll help you get a real randomized kind of version of this. And I am just laying them straight up on these little grid squares, which makes it so much easier to try and get everything straight and lined up well. So I'm gonna continue just laying these out. I may move a few things around as I see fit, and I will come back and show you what I've got once I've got everything on the interfacing, and then I'll show you how to press it. Okay, I've got everything laid out the way I want it. I'm gonna take my iron and I'm just going to actually press. I'm not gonna move the iron. I'm pressing it down on each section just to get it semi-stuck. It doesn't have to be fully stuck. We can do that here in just a minute. But right now I'm trying to just get everything placed and not moving. So that just involves you pressing down and then lifting back up. Now, if you want to put some sort of like pressing cloth over this so you don't take a chance of getting gunk on your iron from the interfacing, that's totally fine. I personally like to live very dangerously, so I'm going to just go for it. Now, we're going to make 4 of these total. So once we get this one done, I've already got 2 that I made yesterday, and then I'm going to make 1 more, and I'm going to make sure everything is nice and stuck and cooled. That's another important step, is to remember to let your fabric, once it's been pressed to the interfacing, cool completely, because if those little glue dots are gummy and gooey, they're not going to stay properly. So now that everything's kind of stuck, I can gently move my iron across the fabric. And I'm gonna do this for a good, 30 seconds, just to make sure everything is glued down. Pay attention to your edges, the little corners. You got this, okay? So finish pressing each one till you have 4, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll move on to the next step. I think we're doing awesome. How about you? No issues yet, but the day is young. Stay tuned. Okay, besties, we've got these ironed on. They're looking so pretty. And now it's time to sew the strips together. We're going to sew these rows. Now you may be wondering, do I need to cut my lining right now? And according to the pattern, well, they don't really give a whole lot of information about the pattern. I'm gonna be honest, I read over it, but here's what I'm thinking. Why cut it now when we're about to sew all these seams and this is gonna become shorter? That's just a waste of fabric. So I'm gonna wait to cut my lining until these are all sewn up because it'll be shorter, right? So let me show you how to sew these on the grid. It's so fun and so easy. Now, the first thing I'm going to recommend is that you use, I know you're shocked, the 1/4-inch quilt foot with guide. This has a special wall right here that is 1/4 inch from this hole. So that makes it extremely easy to use and get a 1/4 inch seam every time. I'm using the Gutermann thread that was included in my project box, and I also am using the needles that were included. I put a new needle on for this. Always put a new needle on for every project, guys. You will be so glad you did. It'll save you a host of issues that you just don't understand why they're happening. A lot of it is related to your needle. So we're going to take our first row here and we're going to fold it pretty sides touching so that you have this nice straight edge. And all you have to do is lay it in your machine right up against that edge of that 1/4 inch quilt foot with guide and sew. My stitch length is a 2.5. That's just the regular default stitch length on my machine. It's a great utility stitch, holds very well against pressure. Once you reach the end, cut your thread, and you did your first row. Okay, now just fold it again and repeat. Now I like to flip it this way. My birds are so happy this morning. I don't know if my microphone's picking up on that, but they are just chirping away. I was laughing the other day because I posted a video, some of you saw it, about pivoting and that it's okay to change directions if you're doing a project or even in life. If there's something that is not feeding your soul anymore, it's okay to change directions. And I got so many wonderful comments that, you know, people needed to hear that and they were glad that I said it and put it out in the world. And I had a few people ask me, because I said in the video, you know, content creation, well, first of all, it wasn't even a thing when I went to college because I'm old, but like this was not my original plan for my job, for my life. And a few people asked, well, like, what did you go to college for? And so I went to college for psychology, and my plan was to go get my master's degree and become a school psychologist or a guidance counselor. But life happened, and by the time I graduated, as with a lot of people who go to college, they were like, I'm sick of talking about psychology. And so I went out and just started working, you know, in the corporate world I started as a receptionist, and then, you know, this is right out of college, I got boosted up to an assistant, and then I became an executive assistant. This was in Tennessee, and then I moved back to Pennsylvania to live with my parents for a couple years, and I got my first job in event planning and program management, and I realized that I was good at that. Like, I'm good at being a liaison between people. I'm good at directing things and being in control and managing things and just being the person to turn to when people have questions. And so I did that for several years. I worked for the Pennsylvania Newspaper Association and helped with their conferences. Then I worked for the American Cancer Society for a little while doing fundraising. I worked in a physical therapy clinic. I was the manager of the clinic. I worked at Belmont University for a little while, doing their program management of their executive education program. And then after that, I moved into managing hospital scheduling for locums tenens, people who moonlight, and I would do their scheduling and recruiting and help with all of that. So nothing that I was overly passionate about, but things that I enjoyed. What I realized is I'm good at organizing people and things. And so that's just something that, you know, was part of who I was. And I think I've always kind of been that way. My mom used to say Chelsea in charge when I was little, and she said my very first sentence was, I can do it myself. Not shocking, really. I heard a lot. I actually thought about this the other day. I heard from several guys that I dated in like high school that I was intimidating. And that's an interesting word to hear of more than once. I had 2 different people tell me that. And I didn't know at the time. It felt like an insult. It also kind of felt like a cop-out. Maybe they just didn't want to date me, and that's fine, whatever. But what's interesting is when I met my husband, I was not like the easiest. I guess I was intimidating. I don't know. I wasn't like probably the easiest person to get along with, but he saw through that and was willing to, like, I don't know, overlook it or take it on. This is not coming out the way I intended it to, but it's so funny how, like, What's intimidating to others for Isaac and I has been an absolute blast because we challenge each other, like, and that makes it fun. It makes our marriage interesting. But yes, I have always been sort of, I don't know, I march to my own drum. I do things impulsively. I love big. You know, one day I came home from community college when I was living at my parents' house and ripped all the wallpaper off the walls in the foyer and decided I was going to redo the whole thing. And my parents, luckily, were the kind of people that were like, oh, okay, if that's what's happening today, then I guess that's what's happening today. And I'll tell you what, that renovation turned out really nice. Maybe I missed my calling in interior design. But yeah, that's just, I don't know why I got on this tangent, but anyway, we are almost done with the grids. You're going to do this on all 4 of them. And once you complete your grids and sew them all together, we're going to clip into these little tiny stitches. And I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay, we finished sewing these together. Now you can see this is considerably shorter than it was before, which is why it's good that we waited to cut the lining. Grab a pair of snips or small scissors, and we're just going to cut right into this little spot right here. Not through the thread line, but up to the thread line. Just like that. This will help us on the next step when we go to press all of these seams, because there are specific directions we need to press those seams so that they nest well. If there's one thing I have seen and really appreciated so far from this pattern is it is thorough. They did not leave anything out. Maybe a little bit about the lining directions, but maybe I'm just missing it. I could just be missing it. I mean, essentially, you know that the lining is going to be the same size as whatever your finished pieces are that you create with the grid. So I don't know. All right, I'm going to finish clipping through all of these, and then I'm going to take you guys over to the ironing board and show you how to press these. You're doing great. Keep it up. So grab one of your pieces, and so you've got your pieces all clipped, and you will see on the side of your interfacing here, you've got arrows telling you which direction to press the seams. So on this one, we need to go this way. So I'm going to turn it this way, flatten it out, and I'm going to just slowly work off this one row, pressing everything to the left. And I'm tugging just a tiny bit on this end here so that hopefully all of the fabric pulls nice and taut. For the next one, we need to go the opposite way. So I'm just going to flip my fabric because that makes it easier for me, I think. Well, again, here we are just doing this for the first time together. You know what I think might be easier is I'm just going to go up, down, up. So we're going to go down, up, down. I think that might be the easiest. I don't know. Yeah, that feels easier to me. So I'm going to go down here, down, up, down, up. It's definitely not going to be one of those ironing gigs where you're like sliding the iron. I feel like you're pressing the iron more so on this step. If you guys have easier ways of doing this, because I know like half of you have probably already made the Mondo bag, let me know in the comments. Again, this is not a professional tutorial. I already told you that. I'm telling you because I'm doing this for the first time and I'm problem solving this out in like what my initial thoughts are. But if you guys have easier ways of doing it, that's great. You can also just sort of focus on the point of your iron as well to get down into those little creases. Down and up. Okay, I'm going to keep ironing and do all 4 of these, and I'll meet you back here and show you the next step. This is looking great. Okay, I got it. Set it in the directions. So press 1 going the direction it needs to go, and then fold it under and then press it. Well, that makes it a lot more bearable. Oh, you guys. All right, let's try this. Fold it under. Maybe we just turn it now. Yeah. Okay. Some of you are probably screaming at that at me through your phone or whatever you're watching this on. I'm sorry, okay? Yes, that makes it much better. Okay, do it like that. All right, let's sew these together. We've got everything pressed, and now we're gonna fold this down on the pretty side, and we're gonna sew these long seams, okay? So fold it down, load it under your machine. Still doing that 1/4 inch right, well, heavens. Come on, machine, get with the program. We're sewing now. There we go. Just hold it nice and flat. Let your feed dogs pull it through. Don't be pulling it and pushing it. Fabric doesn't like that. Gorgeous, darling. Do that on these 2 more rows and then on all of your other 3 pieces. And I'll meet you back here and we'll start putting this bag together, I think. Maybe? Okay. It's time to cut the lining. We finally have the patchwork piece down. Okay, I just have to interrupt myself and say that this fusible interfacing with the grid on it is so fantastic. It makes you look like a much better sewist than you probably actually are. Myself, 100% included. All of those points just match up beautifully. Oh, I love grid interfacing. Okay, we're gonna cut this down. So I'm gonna use my acrylic ruler just to, you could eyeball it if you want to. I'm trying to be professional. So we're gonna lay that on there and we'll cut it down right here. Hello, happy birds. I don't even know if that's, I talk about the birds way too much. I'm one of those weirdos that I have the bird feeder on the window so I can stare at them every morning. My grandmother was very into birds and she always had a bird feeder outside of her kitchen window and just loved the goldfinches. That was her favorite bird. And I have been looking for something like with a goldfinch on it to memorialize her because she was one of my favorite people. But I think I might just get a bird feeder with goldfinch food and see if it brings some to my house because that would be even better. All right, we've got 1 cut. And while you're here, go ahead and take your SF 101, which is this. It comes in the box. It's a Pellin product. This is going to be your lining stabilizer. Now, there are other things you can use for stabilizer on this project. If you want a bag that stands up on its own and has a lot more structure, you could use by Annie Soft and Stable. That would be a great option. If you want something kind of between this and the foam, you could use a fusible fleece. So many options for this bag. This is what we decided to go with because it's a little easier to manage and sew, and we want this to be approachable to beginners big time. So that's what we're going to use today. And I am going to take my lining piece and just lay it right on top. Now I did the last one real professional. I'm going to do this one non-professional and just cut around the sides. Because sometimes I'm a grown-up and sometimes I act like a child. Cool. All right, so that one's done. So you should have, if you're trying to keep track, a set of 3 things. Okay, you have your patchwork piece, your lining piece, and your SF 101. You're going to do that 3 times. Your last lining piece is going to be a little bit different. So let me show you that right now. It's going to be a little bit of a pocket piece. And for that, they say in the pattern to just cut it the width of the fabric. So let's fold this up. Let's see if I have the width. I think I cut that off. I don't think I have that anymore, but I think we'll still be okay. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna fold this up. I told you there'd be mistakes, y'all. And let's see. It needs to be, I guess, whatever the width of one of these is. So let's just lay this down. Sure. We'll cut this. Let me even up this edge here. Should be, let's see, 8 inches. This may not be long enough. Okay, so don't do it like I did and save it so you can cut the width of your fabric. Cut this and see where we get. The directions say the size of the sewn rectangular piece plus 10 inches. So let's see if we have that. We may luck out here. I think we might. On the dot. Hot dang. I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. I'll just trim my selvage. So to explain what I just looked at, for those of you who are like, what is happening here? We have this last lining piece needs to be the length of one of your pieces plus 10 inches. And so that's what I had exactly. So that works out great. And I think what they're wanting us to do is fold this up like in the middle so that it eventually, once you fold it, becomes the length of your piece, if that makes sense. So then you have a little pocket here. This is, I would say this is optional. If this is making your head spin, just skip it. Okay, so I'm going to cut the rest of my SF-101, the length of all these pieces so that I have all the things I need. And then we're going to attach the SF-101 to the lining pieces. Okay, great. While I'm cutting SF-101, let's just go ahead and cut our handle. So for the lining part of your handle, you're going to line that with the SF-101. Now, I cut one piece and it fit fine. This one is not fitting, but don't worry, because we have a fix for that. I just cut my SF-101, I guess, a little too cray-cray, but it's all right because it's interfacing. So cut as long as you've got, and then just cut another piece because you're going to be ironing it on anyways. So you can just add this onto the end and cut that out. Easy peasy. When I was learning to sew, everything was a catastrophe that went wrong. And now everything is like an opportunity for creativity and innovation. All right, so we'll take this over to the ironing board in a second. We're gonna cut, now these are the outer handle strips, and we're gonna make those, we're gonna attach those to this interfacing that came with the project. And I think they need to be 26 inches long, but I'm gonna cheat a little bit and try and make mine 27 inches long because I always feel like bag handles are never long enough. And we'll see how that goes. I'll have like one less inch of the fusible lightweight interfacing, but who cares? Because it's just gonna be on the end. So I'm gonna make them 27 inches and just see what happens. All right, where's my other piece? So you've got two of these, you got two of those. Let's take all this over to the ironing board and I'll show you what to do with it. Just a reminder, this is not an actual tutorial today. I'm calling it a sew along / potential disaster. And that is why, because I'm breaking lots of rules and I've never actually sewn this together before. So I wanted you, like I said, to see what my thought process looks like so that maybe it'll give you some ideas when you get into situations where you're like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do here. Because a lot of times I feel that way and I just make it up. All right, so we're going to press this down. And for those ones where it's kind of broken apart, I'm just going to press it. I'm not going to swipe it. But then once it starts getting stuck, you can sort of run the iron up a little bit. And that's like literally all we're doing. We're going to repeat this process on our other handles and all of those lining pieces so that everything gets good and sturdy. Because this bag is going to hold a lot of stuff for us. We're going to be putting it to work. Oh, that pink is so pretty. All right, so that is the handles. I'll do that one since you saw that already. We'll do that in a second. I brought this piece and didn't even need it, so you get out of here. So just to show you, on your lining pieces, you've got the lining pretty side facing down. You've got your SF-101 with the bumpy side touching the wrong side of your fabric. That's how the glue dots get stuck. And we're just going to press that on as well. Do that for all of those pieces. And then I think it's time to assemble this bag. I'm really enjoying this project. so far. The other thing I really like about this is 2.5-inch squares is a pretty common size in several things. So if you wanted to buy a jelly roll, or if you have leftovers from a jelly roll, I've got a few sitting around where the colors are already coordinated, but I just don't have a use for maybe 6 or 7 of those strips. You could use them on this project and make a Mondo bag. I love that. Also, 2.5 is kind of my go-to if I have scraps. I like to cut them down into 2.5-inch squares because I feel like they're just very versatile and usable. So that's another thing, you could make it out of scraps. The other thing you could do is use a charm pack or even a layer cake, because a charm pack is 5 by 5. So you would just cut those charm squares in half and then in half again, and you'd get 4 2.5-inch squares out of each one of those. And a layer cake, I believe, is 10 by 10. So you could get, you know, more pieces out of those as well. And in that case, all of those are already coordinated for you. So if that's something that stresses you out, it doesn't have to anymore. Or like I said, you can just make the whole thing out of scraps. I am actually sitting here thinking I would like to make these for teacher gifts, I think, this year, especially for my littlest son, because it's his last year with his preschool teacher, and she is an absolute angel sent from heaven. And I want to do something really nice for her. And I was just thinking, what should I do? And I really think she would love a bag like this. So great gift idea. Great for a college kid if you wanted to give it to them to use for like a laundry bag because it holds so much. I'll show you at the end. I'm always amazed when I see what people put in these bags. It's insane. All right, keep pressing. I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent today. I'll see you back at the sewing table in a minute. Okay, so for that pocket that we had talked about, we have this all pressed out now. I'm sorry if my voice is a little bit of a mess. I was just thinking about how much I love my daughter and I totally started crying. Is anybody else like that? She just popped into my head and I was thinking about just her and her natural habitat and how she interacts with people and how kind and sweet and precious she is and innocent. And I can't do it because now I'm going to cry again. Oh, girl, get some control. Okay. So again, this is 10 inches longer, and they said that you should just take part of the pocket and like flip it up like this. And I think I want it maybe a little higher. I have no idea. I've never made one of these before. So let's see. It's there. That looks pretty good. I don't know. Maybe I'll put it down just a little further. Better safe than sorry. So roll it up. Oh, that feels too far. Okay, well, that's basically exactly where it was before. Oh, well. So now it's the same length as this, and I'm going to sew, it looks like just a basting stitch along the side here to just lock it in place. So we'll just throw this under. I'm going to sew it at maybe like 1/8 of an inch instead of 1/4. I guess it doesn't really matter. Make sure it's straight. And just lock that pocket in. And I guess we can go back over and press this just to make it crispy if you want. Flatten it out again on this side. Gorgeous. Fake it till you make it, right? All right, I'm not even going to take you with me, but I am going to, this may be too high up. Guess we'll find out. I'm going to take this over and just press those seams right here real quick. Now it's time to sew the 4 pieces together to make sort of a pinwheel looking thing. So lay your first piece, you've got your grid here and it says top point. Make sure that's to the right. This side says bottom center, and that should be in your top left corner. Take your other piece, and this piece says bottom center. You're gonna lay it pretty sides touching so that those 2 bottom center squares are on top of each other. And this one should have the top corner down here, okay? We're gonna sew right along this top 4 squares on this line. Okay, so if you wanna clip it or pin it in place, that's cool. I'm gonna pin mine a little bit. All right, let's take this to the machine. So the point of this is if you wanna mock it up and kind of look at it, when you sew this, it should make an L, okay? So lay this under your presser foot, even up all your edges, and you'll sew right along this dark line. Guys, that's why I'm telling you this pattern is so user-friendly. The way that they have thought through this gridded interfacing with all of the instructions printed on it is so smart. Love, love, love. Back stitch at the end. And so that's what you got is an L. Do that again, okay? So put this one aside, get your other two pieces. I've got my top point on this end and my bottom corner down here. And I'm gonna lay this one so the bottom corner is on top of the other one. Match up your seams and sew on that straight line again. Gosh, you guys are doing such a good job. It's beginner friendly, but it does require some thought. So if you're hanging in there with me, good for you. We can do hard things. Press your seams now to the top of the L. So press your seams up, okay? I'm not even gonna take you with me. I'm just gonna press this right here on both pieces. Now, lay your two L's in a pinwheel formation. And the most important thing to double check that you are doing this correctly is when you roll this part out and this part out, your two bottom centers should be right in the same spot, okay? That's how you know you're doing it correctly. Once you have that, you're going to fold this over and we're gonna sew just in this little area right here where they crisscross each other. So I would just match up your, starting with your bottom center, and I'm gonna switch to clips because I feel like that's a little easier. Okay, match that seam, work my way to the left. Now listen, if your seams don't match up perfectly, it's okay. Nobody is gonna care. It's on the bottom of your bag. All good. Don't let that deter you or make you feel like you're doing a bad job. Life goes on, okay? So once you have this, let's take this to the machine and we're just sewing right across these 8 squares. Lay that in the machine and you're just following that dark line again. So easy. Okay. Now we're gonna press these seams. Oh, look how pretty that is. I love it. Okay, we're gonna press these seams going, I guess they're gonna twist. Yeah, it says twisting in the center. So yeah, your seams will twist in the center, but press them flat. This is great. Now put it aside. Get your lining pieces and we're gonna do the same thing, but with 2 small changes. So take your first piece, might as well start with the pocket piece because we want to make sure we don't forget it. So here's my pocket piece. Make sure your pocket piece is going like where your pocket goes in this way. Okay, this is the bottom, this is the top. Face the pocket opening towards the top and we're going to put the pieces on top just like this and sew right here. And you're going to do that for both of your pieces. So you might as well just mock them up at the same time. So lay that one. It's really helpful if you use a non-directional print for this project because then you're not having to worry about things facing the right way. Just takes a level of stress out. All right, let's go to the machine. Now we need to leave a hole in this spot on this lining for turning the bag. That's the second weird thing we're doing. So what I'm gonna do is sew about 2 inches in and back stitch and cut the thread. I'm going to move up about 6 inches or so and then put it back down, back stitch, and then sew on. Now I'm not sure if this is exactly where you're supposed to leave the lining hole, but again, we'll find out. It may be in the next step, but it's okay. Yeah, so you do have a spot now where you can turn the whole bag right side out. That's really important. Right, back over here, we're gonna make our pinwheels. So if you wanna press your seams, that's fine. I'm just gonna fold mine because we've only got these 2 right here. So lay it out the way that you expect it to look when it's done and then fold it up, okay? And we're gonna sew this line right here. So I'm gonna clip this just right here in the middle and sew right here. 1/4 inch seam. Start with a back stitch. I guess you could also leave, maybe this is where you were supposed to leave the hole, but I don't think it really matters that much. Okay, take this to your ironing board and press it. And then we're gonna work on the handles. It's time to conquer the handles. It's handle time. All right, this is my pretty side, and this is gonna be the inside, like where my bottom of my hand goes. So we're gonna lay those pretty sides touching. Yes, we are. Lovely. We've got our handles laying pretty sides together. If you wanna pin or clip them, that's fine. We're gonna sew a 1/4 inch on either side, so you can follow this dark line on the interfacing if that's helpful to you. We're just gonna sew straight up each side. This is gonna create a long tube. And you may be thinking, this might be a good spot to use our tube turner. And again, that's why I love this ambassador box, is they give you the tools that you need to make the project, but then you're gonna use a tube turner in your sewing room all the time. It's such a helpful tool. If you wanna get the ambassador box, I have it linked in the description below, and it's a fantastic, fantastic project box. All of our ambassador boxes with Sewing Parts Online are aimed to give you a quick project, or maybe sometimes not even quick, sometimes a little more involved because we believe in you, but something that you can have everything in the box that you need. Takes the stress out of it. Not all of us have time to go, or the ability to go to a fabric store, because sadly, a lot of them aren't there anymore. So this gives you something that can show up on your doorstep. You can open it up and make the Mondo bag or whatever the project is, which is fantastic. I just have so much praise for this gridded interfacing. They really just make this so easy. I know I've said that 1,000 times, but it's true. All right, let's get the tube turner out. I've not actually used this kind before, so it'll be an adventure. There's a medium and a large. Insert plastic cylinder into stitched fabric tube. Push fabric end into cylinder with wooden rod. You could read the directions, or we could just try it. I'm gonna try the large one because this is a pretty big tube, right? Oh, I just ripped the direction. Insert plastic cylinder into stitched fabric tube. Okay. Push fabric end into cylinder with wooden rod. Push rod and fabric into cylinder until turned fabric end comes out. I feel like I'm going to poke through the fabric. Maybe I should use this end. Oh, I think I see what's happening here. Oh, let's see. You're supposed to push it until you see. I don't need to aim it towards my face. Don't do what I'm doing. Push it in. Oh, and then it comes. You guys. Well, that's brilliant. Oh my gosh, that was so fast. Good call, Jenna. That's a great thing to put in this box. And now all we have to do is press it. Cool. Okay, repeat that with the other tube. And I'll meet you back here. We're on step 11 and there's only 12 steps, so I feel like we're close. I have pressed my handles and now I'm going to top stitch down either side. Now for this, I'm gonna do it about 1/8 of an inch away, just because I feel like that's a little bit cuter. And I'm gonna up my stitch length to a 3.5, but you don't have to do any of that. Just try and get it straight. So my eyes are lining up with the side of my presser foot. I'm just gonna stitch a nice straight line down this side and then the opposite side. And then I'm also gonna do that on my other handle. And then we're gonna baste them to the top of our bag. It's getting really exciting. Okay, see that pretty line? Oh, that's lovely. I'm gonna do that again. Meet you back here when we have our handles sewn. Well, I got a little ahead of myself and completely skipped step 8. So if you were wondering why this doesn't look like a bag yet, that's because we didn't sew it to make it look like a bag yet. So let's go back to our pinwheel and we're gonna make it look like a bag now. So on the back side, you should see some dotted lines. See this line? And it should make a square. You see that dotted line square? Okay, that's what we're gonna be focusing on for this next step. Take one of your sides and fold it along the dotted line. Now we're not gonna be sewing the dotted line, but at the point where those dotted lines match up, you're gonna have two pieces that kind of naturally line together. That's what we're gonna sew. Okay, so lay this in your machine and we're gonna sew just up to this end of this spot right here on that 1/4 inch mark. And when you reach where that shorter end is, just back stitch. Okay, now go to your next one and you should find your next dotted line that we're gonna fold it over. And again, we'll sew from the bottom of the bag to the top with that shorter end. We're gonna stop right where that shorter end ends at a 1/4 inch. Try and match up your square seams as best you can. Not looking for perfection. Okay, it should be starting to form a bag-like situation. Yes, lovely. All right, go to the next one. Repeat this on all 4 of those dotted lines so that you sew up all the sides. And then I'll meet you back here and we're gonna do that to the lining as well. So this is what it looks like once you get it sewn together. And turn it right side out and look at it. It's a Mondo large, big bag. Double check your corners to make sure that you got all your fabric snagged into those seams so you don't have any holes. And then that's the first piece. That's cute, right? Oh, that is cute. Okay, now we're going to repeat that on the lining, but here's the trick. You're not going to have those little dotted lines. But by now, muscle memory should take over. You should be able to kind of figure this out as you go. So you're just going to start in one of these V's right here. Put those pieces together. Line up your edges here and start at the bottom and sew up towards the top. Okay, you can do this. Easy peasy. Just make sure you're grabbing all that fabric when you start the seam so that there's no holes in your lining. Gorgeous, darling. Straight up. Now, this is the side with my pocket, so I'm just gonna treat it like normal. Okay, now move to the next one. And just repeat that from bottom to top, matching up these seams right here and sewing them. Okay, keep going. And then once we have both of those shells, then it's time, I think, to move to step 12, 11. I don't know. I'm so confused at this point, except I'm not. I feel like we've got this. I'll see you in a minute. All right, the lining is sewn. She cute, if I can ever get it open. That's cute, right? Okay, we're going to attach our handles now. And again, the interfacing saves the day here. It has it marked for you where to put it. So you're going to place your pretty side, the side that you want on the out, like when it's being held, that's seen. You're going to place it right side of this to the right side of that and match it up here. And then you're just going to sew right across this line. And that's going to baste it in place or stitch it in place for now while we get this all sorted out. So a quick stitch and then you're going to fold it, make sure it's not twisted, and come up on the other side here and do the same thing. Grab your other handle and repeat that on this other side. All right, the handles are attached. Now I'm going to hold everything right here and kind of gather it in one hand, and I'm going to drop it into my lining. And it says in the directions to do this the opposite way where you're dropping the lining into the bag, but I don't think it matters. So we're going to match up all of these points right here. We need some clips because the next thing we're going to do is sew around the top perimeter because we're almost done. So just match these up as best you can and clip around the whole thing, or pin if that's what you like. I'm curious, are you a clip person or a pin person? I myself am a clip person unless it's something inside the garment or the bag, like not on the edge where I need to actually use a pin in order to secure it. Or if I am doing something where I need to make sure that this piece doesn't slip or move in any direction, obviously the clips are not as secure. So if I'm needing a little more security, then I will use a pin. What do you like to do? Let me know in the comments. And now all I have to do, oh, I see why they told you to do it this way. So you can stitch on the solid line. So if you want to flip this the other way, it's fine, but I'm not going to because it's going to still show up the way that I need it to. And I'm keeping that 1/4 inch quilt foot with guide on because you don't have to, but it'll help me keep that 1/4 inch nice and even. So I'm going to start on a long edge here. You're going to sort of ease it in, make sure your seams match up as best you can. Start with a back stitch. Make sure that you're hitting all the fabric as you sew. And you're going to sew the whole way around. So when you reach one of these divots here, like where it's a V, go down to the point of the V, stop, and pivot just a little bit so that you're now sewing in the opposite up direction. You also want to make sure that you're catching all that fabric. Good, good, good. To one more point just to show you, and then I'll let you take off and do it yourself. So we're going up to the point, leave the needle down, pivot, pivot, and keep going. Okay, finish sewing the whole top perimeter of your bag, cut the thread, and then I'll show you what to do next. We're just going to turn it right side out and one last little stitch and we should be done. We've just finished sewing the whole perimeter of the top of the bag, and we need to do just a couple little housekeeping things before we turn this right side out. So I'm going to trim these little corners off. I need to find my actual sewing scissors. These are not for this. Just cut right up to the stitch line, not through it. So trim, trim, trim. And on these V points, cut just into the thread line, but not through it. This will help everything turn out really nice and crisp. So get rid of this, get rid of that, and cut into here. And it's a little hard to see, so just be careful. And if you're nervous that you're gonna do it wrong, then don't. Better safe than sorry on that. You don't wanna have to sew anymore. We're almost there. When you're this close, you just wanna be done. Time to turn the bag right side out. So where you left that hole is where we're going to turn everything right side out. Oh, I'm nervous and excited. Go slow with this. You're pulling a whole lot through there. Just pull a little bit at a time. Oh, this is going to be so cute. And it's going to hold so much stuff, which is good because I have a lot of stuff. Yes. Cute, cute, cute. Oh, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Now you can finger press this down or you could take it to your ironing board. We are going to top stitch it, but first I want to just double check that I hit all of my seams and that everything is enclosed properly. Looks like it is. And so what I'm going to do is close up this little hole. Now you can hand stitch this if you want. I'm using off-white thread with this off-white fabric and it's on the inside of my bag. So what I'm going to do is just fold it in on the edges here so those raw edges are concealed, and I'm just going to do a little edge stitch just to close up that hole. Nothing crazy. Stuff the lining in, give it a shake or two just to get it all where it's supposed to be. Oh, that is so cute. Yeah, it's so angular. I love that about it. Nice big bag. Look at all that room to put all sorts of things. So now all I'm gonna do is and let's see how the pocket turned out. Oh, cute. It's like right here. That's great. That'll be perfect. I love it. We're just gonna top stitch. I'm just gonna leave the 1/4 inch foot on because why not? So just finger press, roll it. If you want to press it out before you do it, that's fine. I'm going to sew it about 1/8 of an inch away up my stitch length, 3.5 just to make it cute, and it'll go faster then. And when you get up to these points here, stop, pivot just a little, and keep going. will help hold the lining down as well. All right, so I'm gonna keep top stitching, and then I'm gonna show you the final bag. Does this bag hold all of my hopes and dreams? It sure does. It sure does. This turned out so darn sweet. I love it. Yes, ma'am. I am going to use this all the time. This is such a great big bag. And y'all, it wasn't that hard. This was my first time sewing this pattern. I highly recommend it. I think y'all can handle this one. It's so helpful the way that they include that gridded interfacing with all of the markings and directions. At first I was like, this is going to be overwhelming, but actually it was really helpful. So if you are interested, go get the ambassador box from Sewing Parts Online, linked in my description below, and you will get your own Mondo Bag kit. How great would this be for the pool? Oh my goodness. Look at that. You could fit a toddler in there. Honey, come here. You want to come get in my bag? Just kidding. Thank you so much, Jenna Hall and Sewing Parts Online, for this fabulous ambassador box. And I really hope you enjoyed today's sew along. I'm not going to call it a disaster because there is certainly nothing disastrous about this adorable bag. Go get the box and then send me pictures of what you make because I want to see it. I'm Chelsea with She Sew Seams. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'll see you next time.